All right, so today I would like to speak about the cone of existence, or reality if you wish, and the Platonic solids. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a model. I got some paper here, and I'm going to use a model that helps us understand these things, or see it really. It's not about understanding, but seeing things, which is insight. And what it comes down to basically is we're living in a place that is complete, a one unity. And this is what really non-duality means. Non-duality shows that there is no duality. But yet from a relative point of view, there is duality. And the way I'm going to describe this is in this way. Basically, we have the cone of existence. I'm going to draw it like this. And this is nothing. The void starts over here, like this. And as the cone comes down, it becomes more solid. You see, it becomes more solid. And all the way down, even more solid. This is the physical world now. And then finally, dense material world here, of which the tip is the most solid part. So what we're basically talking about is we're talking about nothing, the absolute void, the emptiness, the Tao, God, the eternal being, the pre-existent universe, or whatever you would like to call it. And then you got the material world down here. The material dense world, right? That's the material dense world. So what we're talking about is, this is what Plato also refers to as Platonic solids. We're basically talking about coming in from space, from nothing, from the absolute, from the original state of being, and we're going into a more dense place. So if you see you're a light being, what happens is along the way there is these ideas, and they're really spacious out here, and as you come in they start to become more dense. And then the deeper you come in, the denser and more overlaid they are. You can see they start to become even more solid. And as the light travels, it basically picks up these solids. And finally, and I'm not going to draw all of these dots, but obviously it's going to get more dense and dense as you come in. You end up in what we call, let's say, the physical world here. Let's just call this the physical world. Let me just do it with, I don't know, is there a sign for physical world? Let's just call it the physical world. And then what continues to happen is, as people identify with their body and with their minds, they say, well, they were born, and this is my parents, and this is where I'm an American or Chinese or whatever. They start identifying more and more with these ideas of them being a body and them being a person, and then all their belief systems, and then it's dense. And this is the densest point you can reach. Basically, this is like the section of the physical world. So here it's dense, but not as dense, and this is lighter and lighter and lighter. So what happens is basically you come into existence. This is the nothing out of existence, and then you come into existence. And along the way, light picks up these structures. It picks up these Platonic solids. So the idea of a horse may be somewhere here, picked up, and black and gray are colors, and big and small are ideas. They're all Platonic solids. And as the light travels through them, it picks them up. So you end up with, in the physicality, you end up with, you know, a big horse, a small horse, a white horse, a black horse, a brown horse, you know, a horse with long hairs. But hairs, horse, colors, size, all of these are different Platonic solids that before existence, they don't have any reality. They have only, they only exist as a solid idea. And then the idea is picked up as the energy travels through, the light travels through and goes into solidity. So what is the problem with suffering on this planet? Well, the problem is most people live completely in this physical world down here. Most people live as the material physical world, and then as the person, because as a child you pick up these ideas that you are the body, then you are your ideas, and as you grow up on school, they stuff you with all the nonsense that they teach you, and then basically you start believing in that you're a Muslim or you're a Jew or you're whatever, and then all these ideas you pick up make you more dense. Some people come to a point in their life where they feel really unhappy. This is called the awakening point in some people's life, which is usually a spiritual awakening point, in which they start to think, I'm really feeling dense. I'm really feeling unhappy with what I seem to have become, this limited creature in existence that has no longer feels like the light being that you really are. So some of these people, they start becoming free, or at least they start suffering first, and then usually they end up having some breakthrough, some grace comes into their life, their being gets lifted for a while so they can feel the more ethereal light places before existence. So what is the thing, what is the whole thing about this story? What I'm trying to make is, you are the whole thing. This is non-duality. This is what is non-duality. In other words, you are everything from the spacious nothing all the way to the densest of matter. There is no division. This is not a better place or this is a worse place. The problem is, if you don't know about this place, let me grab this piece of paper. If you're unaware of all of this and you live only as that, you're extremely dense. You are extremely, and this is where suffering occurs. You're unaware of the more spacious, vast, non-existent, but way vaster and realer places. Because you see, here in the denser the places down in the bottom, especially in physical existence, you know things, you see things, you smell things, you can see the objects, you can see your body, you can see your parents or your friends, and you can see the world out there. So it seems to be the most real place because it's so damn dense, it's so physical, it's so material, it's so much there. But of course, as you transcend and you go back up the spiral cone of existence, and you go, and basically, because I said spiral cone because it's like this, you know, this is the spiral cone of existence. And basically, as you go back up, which is basically the place to look back into nothing, to look into nothing, the space, that's real meditation, to be as nothing, you're looking back up at who you really are before you took such a dense form. So that when you look back up into nothing, although you have to look away from this solidity, you're no longer looking at something. You're no longer looking at a wall or a house or a person or your own body or your own thoughts. You're all down in this dense material place. You're looking into the space of nothing, the empty void. But it is the most real because, as you can see, it opens up. You know, here it's really narrowed down and small and dense, and as you open up, it becomes a much vaster space, a much vaster existence. And then as you go up and up and up, this is the highest realm. Only the entire cone is the totality. And that's why real teachers would tell you that the most deep teachers, that are the gurus that have realized the vastness of it all, which is this whole cone, will tell you the highest truth is nothing. The highest truth is nothing because the highest truth is nothing specific. There's no Platonic ideas have been picked up yet. There's no specifications made yet. There's no solidity created yet. So this infinitude here is the vastness of it all. Once somebody has realized this absolute void, you see there's nothing here. There's nothing. There's just complete space here. Basically this cone at the top is where there's just nothing, and it's infinite as well. So what you got basically is, it's only until you start identifying with something and coming down into this cone of existence that you become dense. But this density is not wrong. There's nothing wrong with this density. The problem only is if you have forgotten this whole part. Now you live only as the density, only as the physical, only as your thoughts, only as a person, only identified with these specific ideas you picked up along the way somewhere in school and from your parents and from the TV and all this nonsense, that you feel that you're here. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you've forgotten all of this, then you feel really trapped, and rightly so. And you're in duality because now you can't see. Now what non-duality speaks about is saying, look, there is both something, which is here, the material something, and nothing, right? This is, I call it the material, but it's really something, right? So this goes from nothing. Now this is from something to nothing, and this is from nothing to something, right? So basically, this is coming into existence, and this is going back out of existence. But non-duality is the entire cone. Non-duality is both. But when you don't know without knowing it in a mental way, but by knowing through being, don't know the nothing that you are, then you only know the physical that you are. And this causes suffering because you're now in duality. You've forgotten this. So when people say there's nothing wrong with anything, because it's true, there's nothing wrong with the lower parts of this cone. It's only when you don't live as, are rooted in, if you're not rooted in this place of nothing, if you're not there while being in something, then you are disbalanced. Then you're out of balance because you're identified only with the solidity of the lower part of the cone. And this is an infinite cone. It goes up into higher and higher and higher realms. But because the lower realms of this are so dense, we think they exist and we look at them. So science and most people in the world will not acknowledge all these other realms because they can't be measured, they can't be seen, they can't be, in any way, shape, smelt or anything. So for them, they don't have shape, they don't have existence. And it's true. They won't see these parts because these parts are all out of existence. But the whole thing is the cone. And non-duality basically says, be here while you're here. Most people in the world right now are always here without being here. Right? So they're in existence without knowing their true being out of existence. The higher self, if you wish, the absolute original being, the God, the infinite, the universe, the eternal. So this is the eternal and less dense. You can't see it, can't smell it, doesn't have any shapes. Right? I mean, there's lights here. A lot of people now in these newer days are busy with, auras and chakras and light, everything, spectrums. This is over here, in this area over here. And then as you go even higher, it becomes even less formal. Even light disappears and things like that. And you go in even more higher realms. So this is what meditation is as well. Meditation, true meditation, is looking back up into nothing and leaving all the formal stuff behind, leaving all the shape and ideas and concepts and beliefs behind, and looking into the absolute stillness and silence of the nothing. This is the return to the Father. This is why the gurus and the spiritual masters are so fine, so pure, so kind, so soft, because these are the realms where love and compassion start becoming a reality, and not a reality outside of there, because they'll be inside the person living in the physical existence. This place is not separate. There is not duality here. There is only the whole. It's only when you're not the higher realms and you're living only in this place. And so they say, I'm in this world, but not of it. That means that I'm in this world, but I'm not just of that world. I'm also the world that is not physical and like that. Most people, however, feel really safe of being inside of existence because they can see things, they can smell things, they can hear things, they can touch things. And then when those things disappear, they suffer because they don't know that the only thing that happened is those things have returned up into the nothing. So when your partner dies, when your mother dies, when your father dies, there is nothing that has died, because nothing can ever die. It's only that it's returned from its very dense, solid form into nothing again, and more or less dense forms. But if you're completely in this world and of it, and you know nothing about the world above it, then you're going to be suffering, because you're completely in that world. And so you feel like things have died. So the fear of death is nothing other than the fear of becoming your higher levels of what you always are. So it's really incredible. But we're talking about fear of death is literally the fear of being the higher being that you are. In other words, to move up out of this solid density into the more spacious levels of being up here. And this is where people like, Barry Long and Muji and Eckhart Tolle and Sadhguru and people like that who speak of truth. And, they say in the past Buddha and Krishna and Krishnamurti and whatever, Muhammad and all these prophets live, because what they have done is they've left the solid platonics at the bottom and they've moved up into the higher realms, see things in a clearer light, but they're still in existence. But now their existence is more balanced, they're more free, they're more pure, they're more unaffected, because they know finally nothing can be lost, because I'm the entire cone. They know I am the way, the life, and the truth, and this is the whole I. This is the Father, the entire cone of existence. And unless you live in the entire cone, you will be suffering and causing suffering to others. And unless you move up into what you truly are, the non-dual completeness of the whole, then by being it, not by just an intellectual thing, because this is an explanation which goes more towards the intellectual, but it's just a model I'm using to try to show what it means to be nothing, what it means to meditate, what it means to surrender, what it means to leave the denser levels of existence and move up as what you truly are. And in doing so, you become more loving, more compassionate, more truthful. And as you move up, you return to the original state of being. And then you're not just screwing around here in this dense, solid, suffering place at the bottom, because you've forgotten by not looking ever into what you truly are. Some people literally live here, completely identified, suffering, always in despair and fighting with people, and they can't even be in love with their own partner. Most people can't be, families are fighting, countries are fighting. That's all because they've forgotten. It's not, and I'm not saying it's memory, but they're unaware of the higher realms of what they truly are. And they've become a very limited, all the way down there into the something solid world. This is why the world is in trouble, because most people live in this little place here, over here. It's all over here. Some spiritual beings go into other places and they kind of talk about it here. You can talk, for example, like a really nice guy, Deepak Chopra, is still a very mental guy, but he has definitely tapped into and touched on these light being realms, and he goes into deeper states of being. Then you got the more deeper people, and Jeff Foster going all the way up. Then you got people like Sadhguru and Muji and Barry Long and Jesus Christ, and apparently the more realized, and the finer you get, the closer you get to nothing, the more complete you are. And the more harmonious you are, the more harmonious your life becomes as well. So this is the cone of existence. From nothing into something and back into nothing. This is the dance. This is the spiral cone of existence. And this is a model that you can use to see what it means to leave and disidentify and surrender by going back up into the cone. And this is much broader, faster, wider, bigger than the small, narrow, small-minded, dense world down here. Both of them are God. All of it is God. The entire cone is existence, life, truth, universe, right? I don't like the word to use God that much, but you get the point. It's the universe, the whole. This is non-duality. But when you don't live as all of it, you are in duality, and you will cause suffering to yourself and others. So be as nothing, right? Stillness is the way, and stillness is becoming less and less and less identified with the objective, formal, platonic solids. All right, I might make another video. This one has turned out way too long, I think, but anyway, you gotta sometimes use a lot of words down here to try to get your, people looking this way. Most of the stuff I talk about in my life is about, I'm looking always that way, try to explain that way, so that when some people listen to me, I'm bringing them up into the finer realms, the more etheric realms, the more energetic, fine realms, instead of the dense, solid realms. Most things in the world, on Hollywood and almost everything that's going on, is drawing us more into the dense world. Always looking at form and existence and the body and objects and money and everything that has to do with this physical existence. Very few people can leave that and rest as the more non-existent realms which we truly are. I instead always want to point people, look, you're not this, you're that as well. So I hope that it helps, and maybe I'll make some more about this kind of stuff. At least even this one. I could talk for another hour about this, but of course this is already going on 20 minutes, so I'm giving a break here.